First of all, is the answer yes?
The answer is absolutely yes, Joe.
It's the history-making moment Joe Biden asked Kamala Harris to be his running mate.
You ready to go to work?
Oh my God, I'm so ready to go to work.
But Biden is being mocked on social media over this photo of that moment. He's holding his phone upside down, and he appears to have a prepared script in front of him. These women may be the 55-year-old firebrand senator's secret weapon. They are an army of members of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority who have been among her most loyal supporters since she pledged at historically black Howard University. There she is, fourth from the left.
We're gonna cook today.
Okay.
Is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, you know Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes.
And certainly you could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Knock wood.
Kamala Harris, Attorney General of California, U.S. Senate candidate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We've given HBCUs $4.2 billion.
So HBCUs got that this year, $4.2 billion.
$4.2 billion.
Ain't nobody gonna get on Twitter and say you lying, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I will. Because they got $4.2 billion from us, and then they got another $500 million from the Department of Education. So it's really $4.7 billion.
Okay.
And
That's a flex.
And in Build Back Better, they're going to get more money. And it'll start with a B and not an M.
Yeah. I'm going to give you the last word, and I would love for you to tackle the politics of all of this. Why are Democrats choosing this as the place to cut funding in their negotiation process?
And I'm like Rodriguez, I can't really give you an answer for that. But what I can tell you that this is a procedural process whereby through reconciliation, we were able to pass these acts with a simple majority of the Senate without having a Republican vote. So to be very honest with you, it's kind of in-house conversation that President Biden and Vice President Harris, I'm hopeful that they will sit with Alma Adams, they will sit with Senator Warner, and they will come to some conclusion, some true reconciliation, because this is in the hands of the Democrats now. This is something that we can get done, that we can get across the finish line, and we simply need to get it done. You're absolutely correct.
We've been very adamant recently on definitions, being able to properly define what it is you're actually trying to articulate when you say things like, we want tangibles, or we need a black agenda. Well, what does that actually mean, right? Now, the same applies to Hispanic serving institutions. What does that actually mean? A Hispanic Serving Institution, HSI, is defined in federal law as an accredited degree-granting public or private nonprofit institution or higher education with 25% or more total undergraduate Hispanic or Latino full-time equivalent student enrollment. In the 2018-2019 academic year, 539 institutions met the federal enrollment criterion. Well, what's the criteria to be considered an HSI? If you scroll down to backgrounds, it states, have at least 25% Hispanic or Latino undergraduate full-time equivalent student enrollment. Now, there are other criteria to be met, but that's the most important one that I just read off to you.
But this is what the Democrats do. They just got caught this time. What the Democrats do is they say things that sound good, and then when the cameras are shut off and everybody leaves, they go into a room and they economically castrate your people. This is what they've done for almost 100 years. We've been voting Democrat since 1936, and the result of all of that voting has gotten us to a point where we are literally the last men, women, and children on the totem pole.
Because as of now, there are 539 HSIs. Back in September of 2002, per the National Center of Education Statistics, there were only 335 HSIs. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells me that Hispanic serving institutions is an ever-growing body of institutions in comparison to HBCUs that are stagnant at 101 institutions. Well, That's a mistake, actually. They're not stuck at 101 because they're actually declining. There are 101 HBCUs in the United States of the 121 institutions that existed during the 1930s. Now, can somebody please explain to me how a declining set of institutions, HBCUs, are supposed to compete for funding against an ever-growing set of institutions, HSIs? Also, not only do they have to compete with an ever-growing set of institutions, but many of these HSIs are majority white institutions.
Today, United States Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, after consulting with the United Negro College Fund leadership, issued $576.9 million to historically black colleges and universities in response to the coronavirus pandemic. This funding is in addition to the $351.69 million allocated earlier to HBCUs, bringing the total amount of funding from the CARES Act to $928.6 million, with $175.8 million of that total going directly to students at HBCUs, after UNCF advocated tirelessly to convince decision makers to include a set-aside amount of funding for HBCUs. Funding for those institutions were granted and passed by Congress in H.R. 748, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, and signed into law by President Donald J. Trump on March 27, 2020. Now, someone asked me to fact check Mr. Kimbrough, and so I did, because I want you all to know the truth. Now, I heard Mr. Kimbrough talking in front of Charlemagne the Frog, and what he was saying didn't seem right, nor did it sound right. It actually sounded outlandish. You won't be able to find anywhere where HBCUs received $4.7 billion in 2021. Matter of fact, none of the HBCUs have even said that this is true. So you should know that what he is saying is ridiculous. Now, actual funding did not get cut. What got cut was potential funding. That is the truth. But an even greater problem is how many institutions get money that should go to actual HBCUs. That should be the concern. So HBCUs have actually been getting underfunded for a very long time, which may explain why Trump was very specific about the funding for HBCUs.
We have made great strides in strengthening HBCUs, a cherished and vital institution in our country. Very important.
In February of last year, President Trump signed an executive order reaffirming support to historically black colleges and universities, also called HBCUs. The online discussion about funding for HBCUs lit up again when Beyoncé announced she was donating $100,000 to black colleges. And some people claim that Trump has given more HBCUs federal dollars than any other president. So, you know what we did? Our Verified team looked into that claim. And according to the Education Department's latest records, President Obama held the record for allocating the most federal funds in 2010. And this year, President Trump topped that, setting aside more than $360 million for HBCU. Now, as of tonight, we can verify the online rumor is true. President Trump has pushed more federal dollars toward historically black colleges and universities than any of his predecessors.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right?
Wait for it. Free bands, get money. Go.